Hey everyone, Aaron Stewart, Data Access Golf, the live Monday, Data Monday presentation. Great to have you with me today. What a weekend of golf. That was special. That was very, very cool. Congratulations to Shane Lowry for sure. The history of that part of the world, to have an Irishman being cheered on by Northern Irishmen and everybody it was just a very, very cool end of the major season, really. And to have it done in July is crazy. Normally we'd have the PGA still to go and then the playoffs, but with the change in the schedule, that's it. That's all she wrote. We've got our 4 majors in the books, and we'll just wait 8 months till the Masters does it again. But until then, this has been really, really cool. Just excited to get in and get this show going. So let's do that right now.
Welcome to Data Access Golf, your home for rapid golf improvement. And now, from the thin air of the Rocky Mountains, next on the number 1 tee, your host, Aaron Stewart.
Welcome back. Thank you very much. Again, today's Data Monday. We always do this. We review the data that matters, basically how the players performed. And also we look at the benchmarks from not only this tournament compared to 2018 and their year-long season. And we compare that to our benchmarks, hopefully, to help us see if our games are solid or where they need improvement. I think that we've been doing it all year, and they have been solid. I've been really pleased with the benchmarks and how they've been helping people, and hopefully they're helping you as well. I am happy to announce, but we have made some really good progress on the app, and it's gone, it's very close to just going to the coders, which shouldn't take too long. The design sometimes takes a lot longer, and I wanted to talk to a few folks about it before I actually took it to the coders. One of those individuals I'm happy to announce, I interviewed Fred Shoemaker this morning for the podcast, so we'll broadcast those starting tomorrow. It was a wonderful discussion. I actually had my coaching call with him this morning, and then we went right into 45 minutes of questions for the podcast. It was an awesome discussion. It was he just has so much information, and his mind just works on a different level, and I'm excited to share that with everybody because it's really amazing. We kind of figured out, too, that we've been doing this together for 12 years now. I've been in the mastery program since 2000, and I think we figured 2008. I think I got the email in 2007 and signed up for 2008, and then there's a group of us that have been together all those years and just love learning together and love learning under the tutelage of one Fred Shoemaker. So it was a great discussion. So looking forward to sharing that with you. But today I wanted to get in and go over this the British Open was beautiful. I mean, the Royal Portrush is unbelievable, gorgeous. I am part Irish and part Scottish, as you can tell by the Stewarts. That is where my family is from. And my mother's side is the Irish side, and my father's side is the Scottish side, obviously with the Stewart. And so I knew somewhat of the history of Ireland, and but not as in depth as the commentators and everybody made sure we understood over the course of the last week, which I really appreciated. It was kind of fun to understand that, and it made when Shane Lowry walked up the 18th. You probably could have started celebrating after Saturday, right? Because the data showed that you had to be within roughly 1.5 strokes going into Sunday to have a chance over the course of the last 20 years. And he had a 6-stroke lead at that point. So it looked pretty good for Shane, but you got to play him. And the weather wasn't supposed to be very good, but they went out and played it. And it was really just amazing to see how well everybody did. It was very cool to see Tony Finau, a local boy, do well too. Move up into third there as well. So another top 5 finish for him. He's had a good year in the majors. I know we talked about Brooks Koepka. He's finished in top 5 in all 4 majors. I'm not sure where Tony finished. I'm trying to think, but he had a really good year in the majors as well. So I was going to look it up, but I didn't. So we'll look at that up for a different show. But anyway, let's jump right into the numbers really quick. I don't want to drag this on too long. I'm so excited about Fred Shoemaker, and I need to get on and start producing a little bit to get it ready for tomorrow. But really excited about it, and super excited about Shane Lowry's win. It was very popular. I definitely The numbers said that Justin Rose, right? The data said that Justin Rose would be standing tall at the end. Didn't work out that way. Golf rarely does follow data. There's a lot more variability and variety that you cannot predict, in golf and in the golf swing and in the golf courses and the weather and everything else, and bounces and all of that. There's no way to take that all into consideration. But he showed himself quite well until the final round. So he was trending in the right direction. I can see why the number said that he would be out there in front, but it didn't really work out that way. Another really interesting outcome of that was the JB Holmes situation with Brooks Koepka talking about slow play. And this isn't the first time we've talked about JB Holmes and slow play. He's not, it's a situation where he's not a slow player, but he doesn't start doing any of his preparation until it's his turn. And that's what makes him so slow. But this is not the first time somebody's complained about him either. It was out in L.A., Riviera, I think it was, wasn't it? Where he also basically did the same thing. When the weather got tough, he got really slow. It took a long time deciding on which club to hit. So not the first time. And then I was disappointed, honestly, with Xander Schauffele and that whole RNA situation and how that came about. I was disappointed with how the RNA handled it. It's rare that the RNA does something wrong, in my opinion. They've usually been quite good at always being on the right side of situations, even difficult ones. And this particular one, I think they blew it. I mean, they took a page out of the USGA's book and just completely messed this one up. So I don't know why in the world that would have to be released. I don't know why anybody cares. And I don't know why Xander Schauffele has to be the center of attention on all this. It seems more of a problem for the manufacturer that handed in the club. It has nothing to do with Xander. You think all of these players have time to go and weigh and measure the COR and MOI and all that on their clubs? They don't. And then they never do it. It's just handed to them, and they just kind of trust the people that are putting it together. So if anybody should be in trouble, it should not be Xander Schauffele. And why in the world they would release his name makes absolutely no sense to me. So RNA kind of kicked that one, kicked themselves in the teeth with that one, that's for sure. So those are sort of and honestly, Royal Portrush was unfreaking believable. I'm not much of a fair weather golf. I'm a fair weather golfer. I don't like to play in rain, cold. I just don't. So, that's the thing that worries about me about going over and playing, that if I went out and it was bad, and if it was bad weather, it didn't matter if it would be St. Andrews. I don't think I'd play. I think I'd stay inside. And it looks like that's probably, that probably happens quite a bit. So anyway, neither here nor there. It was a gorgeous course. It was so fun to be watching it from the it was actually very warm here. So the air-conditioned confines of the house and from the office, it was great. It was great entertainment for sure. And really an amazing way it's kind of cool having the British Open as the last major, honestly. I like where the PGA falls a little bit better. I like how the majors are set up. It was fun. I think I like how this seems to naturally kind of go to end with, sort of the oldest major in the world that they like to call the Open. I got in a little fight. Not a fight, but I got in a little online with some folks because I keep calling it the British Open. And it's not out of being rude or anything. It's always been the British Open to us. And growing up, it was just the British. We never referred to it as the British Open or anything. It was just the British. And I know that they've changed the name recently, and I know we've talked about that. But, even like in the interview today with Fred Shoemaker, he referred to it as the British Open. And I think that, our friends across the pond don't quite understand that to us, when you say, we've got the Provo Open and the Utah Open, and there's opens all over the place. So just to say the Open, it's so confusing that we always have to throw because if you say the Open around here, it could be one of the 30 of them. And so we always, Provo Open or whatever, and we always just called the British. That was when you say the British, you take the Open completely out of it, take the confusion completely out of it, and we all knew what we were talking about. The British always meant the British Open. And so no offense to anybody, but we'll probably continue to refer to it as the British just because it's the easiest for us to communicate that way, and we don't want to have to communicate and say more words than we need to get a point across. So again, no offense to our brothers across the pond. We're all related. We all love golf, and we just don't like to talk a lot. So in our vernacular. So let's hop right in it. I'll bring up my screen now. I did a kind of a presentation to help us get through and see some of this data point for us here in the United States. I know that probably over the European tour, they know Shane a lot better than we do. Shane has played over here since 2015, and he had a good run at a couple majors, as we'll see in some of this bio information. But look, I used the Open logo there, folks. Okay, I used their logo, which I'll probably get sued for. I probably should have put the British up there, but whatever. So this is the British Open, Shane Lowry, 2019 champion. Okay, so some of the things that I learned here as I went through and tried to gather this stuff for this bio page. As an amateur, he won the Irish Open. They talked a little bit about that on the TV coverage. He was an amateur and won the Irish Open in Ireland. And it's a European Tour event. And it was in a playoff over Roger Rock. Pretty cool. What a great way to win your first professional tournament as an amateur. Of the win, and I thought this was interesting. Padraig Harrington was kind of the Irish golfer for a while, right? He won a couple majors there, a couple British and British Opens, and so I love this quote from his, so I threw it in there. Padraig obviously is a very interesting cat, but you only have to look at the fact. You only have to look at the fact it is such a rarity for an amateur to win, which is true, right? Very rarely does an amateur win. And I think on the European Tour, Shane was only the third player to ever do it. And such a rarity for an Irish player to win the Irish Open. So to have him win the Irish Open and then turn around and now win the British Open in Ireland after 68 years, I think they said, is truly, it's awesome, right? It's poetic. And I think that we all probably thought it was going to be Graham McDowell or, nobody thought it'd be Darren Clark. But Graham McDowell or Rory McIlroy might get it done. But nobody was really talking about Shane Lowry. And obviously, North Ireland versus Ireland, whatever. But to have him come in and get it done is really cool. Very, very cool. So Lowry won for the first time as a professional in 2012 at the Portugal Masters, also on the European Tour, in October of 2012. Which I can imagine in Portugal is probably pretty nice, not in October, right? And then in August 2015, Lowry won the WGC, so Bridgestone Invitational. So he was on the European Tour, came over and won a WGC event, which is co-sponsored, I guess you could say, with the European Tour and the PGA Tour, and was offered, obviously, PGA Tour status and took it. So he joined the PGA Tour in 2015. And just a little note on his win, he was tied at 8 under with JB Holmes, and then Lowry shot a 63 on Saturday. It's really where he won the tournament. He was 6 strokes up on everybody, and literally, the data showed that going into Saturday, you had to be within 2.5 strokes of the lead in order to win. Going into Sunday, you had to be within 1.25 strokes on average of the lead in order to win. Obviously, Ernie Els came from 6 strokes behind, yada, yada. But Shane Lowry, won over and those conditions and to still get it done. I think Brooks Koepka said it as well. That was just nails. It was really amazing play for him to get that done. And he tied a new course record. He set a new course record. They added 2 new holes, right, in 7 and 8 to change Royal Portrush a little bit. So the course record was Rory McIlroy's before they made those changes. And then Rory McIlroy set a course record on that amazing Friday when he kind of tried to come back from that horrible opening 79 and try to make the cut, missed it by 1. Anyway, new course record on Saturday, kind of distanced themselves to a point where nobody could really touch him. And then obviously 6 shots ahead of Tommy Fleetwood to get it done. So what does that win mean for our good friend Shane? Well, his world golf rankings go from, he was number 33 in the world, pops up all the way to 17th. And then in the FedEx Cup ranking, which we haven't really heard much about Shane all year long, but to go from 68 to 18th, that's 600 FedEx Cup points that did that for him. Excellent. That really helps him in his playoff spot for sure. gets him to the Tour Championship. And this kind of gives you an idea. The year-to-date stats leaders, again, in both the FedEx Cup and the official World Golf Rankings. Brooks Koepka now takes the top spot from Matt Kuchar. Everybody else kind of stays the same until you get to the bottom. Ricky Fowler actually moved up to 9th and exchanged places with John Rahm. John Rahm moved up as well. And I think it was Justin Rose is the one that got bumped out of the FedEx Cup. Actually, I think that was on the World Golf Rankings. You see Brooks Koepka, again, still at number 1. Dustin Johnson now moved up to number 2. Rory McIlroy. Dustin Johnson stayed at 2. Rory at 3. Justin at 4, which is interesting. Francesco Molinari moved up 1 from 7 to 6, changing places with Bryson DeChambeau. And then everybody else pretty much stayed the same. They do it on a 2-year rotation. So that's kind of a big difference. I did notice, too, that we don't really talk about the Barbasol, and I'll try to later on in the week, which was the regular PGA Tour event for the week. Jim Herman went out and won that. He was ranked 1,252nd in the world, and with the victory, jumped all the way up to 269th. So kind of a big jump there for sure. This is where it gets kind of interesting for me. Shane Lowry was, I thought that he was more consistent than this, I got to say. He was one of those sort of grinders that I thought was more consistent. We'll see in his numbers why he's not as we get to the benchmarks, but this was pretty interesting. He's played in 93 events and made 60 cuts. That's a consistency rating number of 65%, and that puts him right there in the good category where he's probably going to keep his card, and he does. But, he's not one of the elite players at all. I'm going to have to rerun these because Tiger Woods has missed a few cuts this year. And I wonder if he's getting close to dropping down. And then Brooks Koepka was getting very close, moving his way up, especially in majors. So was Rory McIlroy, but he just missed the cut. I need to rework these. I've kind of just left them alone, and those are only for the victors this year. But, so Shane Lowry would fit there in that 65%, which I have as a consistency scale, a good player, but not a solid or elite or a legendary player for sure. Okay, the benchmarks, obviously my favorite part. This is what the app's kind of geared towards. I actually gave the app screens to Fred Shoemaker today and described to him what I was trying to, excuse me, let me get a drink here. I was trying to describe to him, the purpose behind it, what I was trying to accomplish. And so he's looking at those right now. So I will have his expert advice also included on the app, and I'm really excited about that. I think that when you have a gentleman who's been teaching golf for, 45 years or something like that, he'll have something to say, and he'll make sure that the app is better. But it's all based on these benchmarks and helping us kind of see exactly where our game is, so we work on the things that we're weakest at, right? So I don't have all the stats because the R&A doesn't keep stats like the PGA Tour does. The PGA Tour does an amazing job at making sure that the stats are available to us. The R&A doesn't. They only kept track of, it was weird, they only kept track of driving accuracy. Well, I guess driving average. No, they didn't. It was just driving accuracy, greens in regulation, and putts per green in regulation. That was it. They didn't keep track really of anything else. So driving accuracy for the tournament, you can kind of see up there in that little card. That's the little guy that I stick up on Instagram after a victory. Those are the British Open colors from the scoreboard. For the tourney, Shane hit 63% of his fairways. For all of 2018 on the PGA Tour, he hit 61%. So with the tough conditions and all that, he hit more fairways. Our benchmark for hitting fairways is 55%. And Phil Mickelson, Tony Finau, and Jimmy Walker are 3 players who hit less than 55% to just legitimize that number in all our heads so we can, not just scoff at them. But those are legitimate tour quality numbers, okay, from really good players. Greens in regulation for the tournament, Shane hit 79% of his greens in regulation, and in all of 2018 on the PGA Tour, he hit 69%. Our benchmark for that is 65%. And Phil Mickelson, Jason Duffner, and Patrick Reed are 3 individuals who hit less than 65% in 2018. Okay, sand saves, we don't have those. That's not a stat that was kept by the RNA. But in 2018, Shane got up and down out of the sand 51% of the time. Our benchmark is 45% of the time. Tony Finau, Bubba Watson, and Gary Woodland are three individuals who got up and down out of the sand less than 45%. Okay, again, just to legitimize that sand save number. Strokes gained putting, RNA doesn't keep track of that, but this is interesting. Shane Lowry does not putt well. He averaged over the course of the entire year, he lost to the field in putting by 0.3 strokes essentially per round, right? So 1.2 strokes per round, per tournament, he lost. We definitely want to see that at least above a 0 in order to be considered. You don't want to lose to the field in putting, and you'd like to, if you're, like a Jordan Spieth, that's kind of how you win against the field. And normally in tournaments, people have to putt very well, but we don't have any putting stats other than the 1.62 putts per green, which is, again, we've been so spoiled with strokes gained putting and the strokes gained numbers that it's kind of hard to go back to something that's less helpful. But anyway, that's where we're at. Scrambling. So this is where we start to see putting obviously was a bit of a problem, but also in scrambling, we see that Shane got up and down around the green 53% of the time. Our benchmark is 55%. So Shane Lowry would be one of these individuals that makes less than 55% in 2018, but Adam Scott, Gary Woodland, and Jason Kokrak are three others. And now putting, we work on 5-footers almost exclusively 90% of the time. And then we spend the other 10% of the time lag putting, trying to get within that 10-foot circle. And I won't spend a lot of time talking about that again, but we're all about making sure that we are absolutely amazing from 5 feet and in. So from 20 to 25 feet, Shane hits 14% of his putts. Our benchmark for that is 9%, so 5 points higher than our benchmark. Great there. Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, and Jim Furyk are individuals who made less than 9% from 20 to 25 feet. In 2018, 15 to 20 feet, Shane hit 16% of those putts. Our benchmark is 17%. So we would ask him to work on that a little bit. So now we've got scrambling, we've got strokes gained putting, which again breaks out into the putting 2018 total. So 15 to 20 footers, we would have him work on. And again, pros have the time to work on all the different lengths of putts. We don't as amateurs. So we focus on the 5-footers. 5 feet and in. That's the only place we should practice putting. And then 10% of that should be lag putting on our putting. So 10 to 15 feet, also 27% below our benchmark of 28%. And you've got Patrick Reed, Keegan Bradley, and Francesco Molinari who made less than 28% in 2018 of their 10 to 15 footers. And then from 5 feet, Shane Lowry hits almost 90%. And that actually is a very good number. Our benchmark is 80%. But if we're practicing our 5-footers all the time, and I think this is where it becomes a big deal. If you can get the ball within a 10-foot circle of the hole and you make 90% of those putts, you make 9 out of 10 of those, then you're going to be getting up and down a lot more frequently, and that's going to help your score. And then this is for the first time I can remember, and I didn't go back and look, but Shane Lowry averaged over 30 putts per round. Our benchmark is 30. So again, Shane's got a real issue with putting, and that seems to be the biggest thing. So around the green and scrambling and putting is where we would have Shane Lowry work on his game. His long game is actually quite good. So, all right. Now the money. This was a big tournament. Almost $2 million was the prize money in this beauty. So you've got $1.935 million. His total score for the 4 days was 269 strokes. 4-day event, that equates to $483,750 per day. It's a good wage. Even in Europe, that's a good wage. That equals, again, assuming a 5-hour round, which was probably a little longer if you played with JB Holmes. But anyway, his per hour rate at 5 hours per round was $96,750. Again, that's a decent hourly wage. $100K an hour. Per stroke, $7K per stroke. Over the course of his career on the PGA Tour, he's made $5.5 million. He's made 60 cuts, as we already mentioned. That equals to $92,105 per cut. And that actually finishes quite within the bottom 5 of all winners this year. And that's a huge number. He almost took $2 million and threw it in on top of his $3 million total. So Shane Lowry has not made a lot per cut. So even when he makes a cut, he doesn't make a whole lot of cash. As we can see with these players that kind of lead the way, you've got Tiger Woods makes an average of $367,000 per cut. Rory McIlroy makes $340,000. Dustin Johnson makes $293,000. Justin Thomas makes $274,000. And Brooks Koepka makes $256,000 per cut. That's going up. Brooks Koepka has done so well. This is just from at the end of, I think, 2018. So I'll need to update those numbers as well. So super congratulations to Shane Lowry. A big deal. I found a little article on what he actually gets for the victory, and it's quite amazing when you win the British Open. Obviously, he picked up a whole lot of world ranking points, which is beautiful. But then on top of that, he picks up, well, here it comes. He picks up an exemption at the British Open until he is 60 years old. So that's 27 more years he can play at the British Open, as we saw David Duval, right? He was there playing, plus 27, I think, total at the end of it all, but he showed up and he got to play. He gets a PGA Tour exemption for the next 5 years. He has a job. He can play in any tournament he wants for the next 5 years. Boom. Huge. He has European Tour exemption for the next 10 years. Okay? That's great. Next 10 years. So if after 5 years he's done with the PGA Tour and he wants to go back home, live in Ireland, he's got 5 years of exemption left on the European Tour. Unbelievable. Invitation to the next 5 Masters, 5 USPGA, 5 US Open, and 5 Players Championship tournaments. All locked up. Done, done, done. So really amazing, and probably the thing that he's most excited about. I read this, that he really wants to make the Ryder Cup team, and he has been really busting to do that. He just got a whole big bunch of points towards that. Chances are very good now that we'll see Shane Lowry playing, obviously, and in the Ryder Cup. Okay, so I just wanted to finish up real quick with some of the stat leaders. There was a few little changes. You've got Ryan Moore now at the top of the driving accuracy percentage. He bumped out Ches Reavie, and then rounding out the next 3, Jim Furyk, Ryan Armour, and Hendrik Stenson. Only look at these because these are the benchmarks that we've been looking at. For greens and regulation, you've got Corey Connors, Justin Thomas, which, I mean, man, if he could make some putts, right? Charles Howell III actually moved up 1, and Johnson Wagner down 1, and then Matt Kuchar also in greens and regulation percentage. So sand safe percentage, 68%, right? That's amazing. Our benchmark being 45. That's pretty incredible. But you've got Tyrone Van Aswegen, Dustin Johnson, Francisco Molinari, Ernie Els, and Tommy Fleetwood. Now, Ernie Els was all the way up here at 2nd, and he has fallen all the way down to 4th with his British Open performance. Had some tough time out of the sand, obviously. And then scrambling, Webb Simpson leads the way, Patrick Cantlay, Lucas Glover, Tommy Fleetwood, who moved up from 7 to 4 with his performance at the British Open, and Aaron Badley just got bumped by Tommy Fleetwood. One little deal. So what does that mean? That means the major tournament season is over. All done. Boy, those don't look centered, do they? They look terrible. Can I do this? I guess it's centered under him. But so there we go. There's our winners for the majors. Tiger Woods, obviously a big surprise in winning the Masters. That sort of changed and set things up. We knew it was going to be a special year for the majors. Have Brooks Koepka come in and go back-to-back in the PGA. Awesome, amazing. To have Gary Woodland hold off Brooks Koepka at Pebble Beach, basically draped in red, white, and blue for the U.S. Open, was amazing, and couldn't happen to a nicer guy. The whole thing with him and Amy, it was a beautiful story. So that was a really popular, wonderful win. Amazing win for Gary Woodland. And then there at the British Open, Shane Lowry in Ireland. British Open in Ireland as an Irishman, getting it done where he won the Irish Open. He also won the Irish Open as an Irishman. Truly spectacular. I don't know what the odds on something like that is, but it's amazing. It's a miracle. So congratulations to Shane Lowry for sure. An amazing performance. What a great tournament and what a great season we've had. Can't wait to actually looking really forward to the playoffs and what's coming. We've got President's Cup. We've got a lot of really fun golf left. And then the new season starts, right? We go right back into it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Good to be with you on this Data Monday. Thanks for joining me. And until, let's see, I guess I don't have to leave it on there. We can bring it on up. But get rid of this, can't we? So thank you for joining me. It's been a great major season, and I know we've done these lives now for Data Mondays, and I appreciate that. And your comments and things have been wonderful. I'll get the MP3 out and still definitely make sure that it's part of the podcast. And then the rest of the week, we'll probably be listening to Fred Shoemaker and discussing some of the things that he brought up, because we went deep and it was cool. And I'm looking so forward to sharing it with you. So anyway, this is Aaron Stewart saying thank you. Until next time, remember, better data always means better golf. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to Data Access Golf with Aaron Stewart. Check us out online at dataaccessgolf.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.